The meditation app notification pinged at 2:47 a.m. My wife Elise never meditated past 9 p.m. and claimed it disrupted her chakras or some wellness garbage she peddled to her yoga clients. But there it was, glowing on her iPad. Mindful Moments, session complete. I should have rolled over. Should have ignored the insomnia that had been eating at me for months. Instead, I slipped downstairs to my basement office, carrying her forgotten tablet like evidence I wasn't ready to examine. Graham Foster, 42 years old, owner of a modest but profitable financial tech firm, reduced to snooping through his wife's digital life at 3 in the morning. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd built my career on data analysis, yet I'd been blind to the patterns in my own home. The iPad was still warm, still logged in. Her meditation folder contained exactly what you'd expect: breathing exercises, guided visualizations, ambient sounds. But buried beneath ocean waves for sleep was another folder: personal practice. My finger hovered over it. 15 years of marriage, and I was about to cross a line I couldn't uncross. The smart play was to put the tablet back, pretend I'd never seen it, maintain the comfortable fiction that my wife's recent distance was just stress from expanding her yoga studio. I tapped the folder. 2 years. 2 entire years of messages, photos, video calls, and promises stretched across my screen like a roadmap of betrayal. The contact name was simple: SC, Simon Croft. British accent in the voice messages, cryptocurrency consultant based in London, digital nomad with a weakness for married American women and philosophical discussions about finding one's authentic self. I dream about finally touching you, read one message from 3 months ago. 2 years of screens between us, darling. When we meet in person, I want to memorize every inch of you. Elise's response made my stomach clench. Soon, my love. I've almost got everything arranged. Graham suspects nothing. He's too buried in his spreadsheets to notice I'm planning my escape. I scrolled deeper, watching my marriage dissolve in real time. Screenshots of flight searches to Las Vegas, hotel reservations at the Bellagio, a detailed timeline for her next yoga retreat, which coincidentally aligned with Simon's first trip to America in 2 years. The meditation folder was brilliant, really. Who would question a wellness influencer having meditation apps? The perfect hiding spot for an affair conducted entirely online, at least until now. My phone buzzed. A text from Elise upstairs. Can't sleep. Going for a drive to clear my head. Don't wait up. At 3:15 a.m., right after her meditation session ended, I screenshotted everything. Every message, every photo, every promise they'd made to each other. My business had taught me the value of thorough documentation, and this was just another data collection project, the most important one of my life. By sunrise, I had 2 years of evidence organized in encrypted folders on my secure server. Flight confirmations showing Elise had booked seat 14F on United Flight 447 to Las Vegas, departing in 6 days. Hotel reservations at the Bellagio for a wellness retreat that would last exactly as long as Simon's visa allowed. She'd planned everything perfectly. Almost everything. When Elise returned at dawn, I was in the kitchen making coffee, her iPad exactly where she'd left it. Rough night? I asked, not looking up from my newspaper. Just needed some air. She kissed my forehead, the same automatic gesture she'd performed for years. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. Thinking about that Vegas conference next week. Might be good for business. She froze, coffee mug halfway to her lips. Vegas? Financial Tech Summit at the Bellagio. Funny coincidence. Isn't that where you're doing your retreat? Oh. Her voice was carefully neutral. Yes, small world. Maybe we could grab dinner. Make it a working vacation. I'll be pretty busy with the wellness sessions. You know how intensive these programs are. I smiled, finally meeting her eyes. Of course. Wouldn't want to interrupt your practice. Something flickered across her face. Suspicion, maybe, or guilt. But she recovered quickly, launching into a detailed description of the meditation techniques she'd be learning from her instructor. Every word was a lie, delivered with the practiced ease of someone who'd been lying for 2 years. I nodded and made appropriate responses while mentally reviewing the evidence I'd collected. The photos Simon had sent her, the promises they'd made, the detailed plans for their first physical meeting. After she left for the studio, I called my assistant Tammy. I need you to book me a flight to Vegas, I said. United 447, departing next Tuesday. The same flight as... Yes, seat 14C, if it's available. If not, anything in that section. Tammy had worked for me for 8 years. She knew better than to ask questions when I used that tone. Consider it done? Should I book a hotel? Already handled. I spent the rest of the morning in my basement office, building what I privately called the archive. Every message between Elise and Simon, organized chronologically, every lie she'd told me about her whereabouts, cross-referenced with his travel schedule, every photo she'd sent him, every promise they'd made, every detail of their planned rendezvous. The meditation app pinged again around noon. Another session with her instructor. I watched the timestamps, noting how they aligned perfectly with Simon's online status. Even now, probably planning their Vegas meeting, they had no idea I was 3 steps ahead. My phone rang. Miles, my younger brother and former police detective, now running his own security consulting firm. Graham, you sound weird. Everything okay? Define okay? Jesus, what happened? I could have told him everything. Miles had always been the one I turned to for advice, the practical brother who saw the world in clear terms of right and wrong. But this wasn't a problem that needed solving. It was a situation that needed managing. Just work stress. Listen, hypothetically, if someone wanted to document infidelity for divorce proceedings, what would be the cleanest approach? Long pause. Hypothetically, you'd want everything time-stamped and verified. Photos, messages, travel records. But Graham, just hypothetically. Okay, hypothetically, the key is patience. Let them hang themselves with their own rope. Document everything, but don't interfere until you're ready to move. And when would someone be ready to move? When they have enough evidence to ensure complete victory. No room for denial. No chance for the other party to play victim. You want them caught so thoroughly that everyone knows exactly what happened. I thanked him and hung up, his words echoing in my mind. Complete victory. No room for denial. The meditation app pinged again at 2 p.m., then 4 p.m., then 7 p.m. Each session lasted exactly as long as Simon was online, their digital affair playing out in real time while I archived every moment. At dinner, Elise was unusually chatty, telling me about her day at the studio, her plans for the Vegas retreat, her excitement about learning new techniques from her instructor. He's supposed to be amazing, she said, twirling pasta around her fork. Very hands-on approach to wellness. I'm sure he is. You should try meditation, Graham. You seem tense lately. Maybe I will. Any app recommendations? She nearly choked on her wine. Oh, there are so many options. I could look into it for you. That's okay. I'll find something that works for me. After she went to bed, I returned to the archive, adding the day's new messages. Simon had sent her a photo of his passport, confirming his flight details. She'd responded with a picture of the lingerie she'd bought for their meeting, charged to our joint credit card, I noted with dark amusement. The meditation folder now contained over 300 messages, dozens of photos, and a complete timeline of their relationship. Everything I needed to ensure that when the moment came, there would be no escape, no excuses, no way for either of them to deny what they'd done. I booked seat 14C on United Flight 447 and began planning the most important presentation of my career. Tammy knocked on my office door at exactly 9 a.m., carrying coffee and wearing the expression she reserved for delicate situations. Your Vegas flight is confirmed, she said, closing the door behind her. Seat 14C. The passenger manifest shows Mrs. Foster in 14F. Perfect. Graham. She sat down across from my desk, abandoning her usual professional distance. I've worked for you for 8 years. I've seen you navigate hostile takeovers and regulatory audits without breaking a sweat. But whatever you're planning, I'm not planning anything, just taking a business trip. To the same destination as your wife, on the same flight, 3 seats away from her, without telling her. I looked up from my computer. Your point? My point is that you're not the kind of man who does anything without a plan. And the way you've been acting lately... She shrugged. I'm worried you're about to do something that can't be undone. Tammy had been my first hire when I started the company, fresh out of college with a business degree and an instinct for reading people that rivaled any psychological profile. She'd grown into more than an assistant, part office manager, part confidant, part early warning system for my worst impulses. What if I told you that Elise has been having an affair for 2 years? Her expression didn't change. I'd say that explains the separate vacations, the new clothes, and why she stopped asking about your day. You knew? I suspected. The signs were all there if you knew how to look. She leaned forward. But suspecting and proving are different things, and proving and acting on it are different things entirely. I turned my monitor toward her, showing the archive's main directory. Hundreds of files, organized by date and type, each one documenting another piece of my wife's betrayal. Tammy whistled softly. How long have you been collecting this? Since Tuesday night. She's meeting him in Vegas. They've been planning it for months. And you're going to... Document it. That's all. Just document what happens when they finally meet in person. She studied my face with the same intensity she brought to analyzing quarterly reports. You're lying to me. I'm not. Graham, I've seen you prepare for every major decision you've made since I started working here. You don't just collect data, you build strategies. You identify weaknesses, you plan for every possible outcome. She gestured at the screen. This isn't documentation, this is reconnaissance. I closed the laptop. Even if that were true, what would you suggest? Pretend I never found out? Let her come back from Vegas and continue lying to my face? I'd suggest talking to a lawyer before you do anything that might complicate a divorce. Already done. Called Peterson yesterday. And? And he said the same thing Miles did. Document everything, but don't interfere until I'm ready to move. Tammy was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. When you say ready to move, I mean ready to end this marriage completely. No reconciliation, no counseling, no second chances. Just a clean break with enough evidence to ensure the prenup's infidelity clause kicks in. The prenup. Elise had insisted on it before our wedding, claiming she wanted to protect her yoga business from my corporate entanglements. Her lawyer had been thorough, building in protections for her assets and income. But my lawyer had been thorough too, including reciprocal clauses that voided her claims to my assets in case of proven infidelity. At the time, it had seemed like an academic exercise. Insurance we'd never need. Now it looked like the smartest investment I'd ever made. So Vegas is just about getting proof? Vegas is about getting undeniable proof, the kind that plays well in court and leaves no room for interpretation. Tammy nodded slowly. And after Vegas? After Vegas, I file for divorce and move on with my life. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't press the issue. Instead, she pulled out her phone and began typing. What are you doing? Clearing your schedule for the next 2 weeks. If you're going to Vegas to end your marriage, you're going to need time to deal with the aftermath. I spent the rest of the morning updating the archive with new evidence. Simon had sent Elise a detailed itinerary for their Vegas meeting, complete with restaurant reservations and show tickets. She'd responded with her flight details and a promise to make up for 2 years of waiting. The meditation app had become their primary communication channel, with sessions happening every few hours. I'd figured out their system. Short sessions meant quick messages, longer ones indicated video calls or photo exchanges. They'd developed their own language of timestamps and session lengths, a code that would have been invisible to anyone not paying attention. But I was paying attention to everything now. At lunch, I drove to Elise's yoga studio. The parking lot was full. Her 12:30 mindful movement class was popular with the country club crowd. Through the window, I could see her leading 20 women through a series of poses, her voice carrying the same soothing tone she used when lying to my face. Mrs. Dugan, our elderly neighbor and the town's unofficial information hub, was coming out of the studio as I arrived. Graham, what a nice surprise. Are you here to support Elise's class? Just picking something up. How was the session? Wonderful, as always. Your wife has such a gift for helping people find their center. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. Though between you and me, she seems a bit distracted lately. Everything okay at home? Mrs. Dugan had lived next door for 30 years and had perfected the art of extracting gossip while appearing genuinely concerned. Normally, I deflected her probing with polite non-answers. Today, I decided to test the waters. She's been excited about her Vegas retreat. New instructor, apparently. Oh yes, she mentioned that. Very exclusive program, she said. Expensive too, I imagine? Worth every penny if it makes her happy. Mrs. Dugan's eyes sharpened. Of course. Though I have to say, these wellness retreats seem to be happening more frequently lately. Just last month she was gone for that weekend in Boston, and before that, the seminar in New York. I filed away the information. More trips I hadn't connected to Simon's travel schedule. The archive was apparently just the tip of the iceberg. Well, you know Elise, always working to improve herself? Indeed. Mrs. Dugan glanced back at the studio. Such a dedicated wife. You're lucky to have someone so committed to personal growth. The irony in her tone suggested Mrs. Dugan's legendary neighborhood surveillance network had picked up more than she was saying. I made a mental note to have a longer conversation with her after Vegas. That evening, Elise was unusually affectionate during dinner, asking about my work and sharing stories from the studio. The performance felt desperate, like she was trying to build up emotional credit before her Vegas trip. I'm really looking forward to this retreat, she said over dessert. It feels like exactly what I need right now. What kind of techniques will you be learning? Oh, advanced meditation practices, energy work, some very intimate approaches to mindfulness. She couldn't help herself. Even when lying, she had to hint at the truth, like she was testing how much she could get away with. Sounds intense. It will be. Very hands-on instruction. One-on-one sessions with the teacher. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I might not be able to call much. The program is pretty immersive. I understand. Do what you need to do. After she went upstairs, I added our dinner conversation to the archive, noting how her lies were becoming more elaborate and specific. She was building a narrative that would explain any evidence of her time with Simon: intimate instruction, immersive programs, limited communication. But she'd made one crucial mistake. Every lie she told me now was being recorded and time-stamped, creating a parallel record of deception that would make her Vegas activities impossible to explain away. The meditation app pinged at 11 p.m. A long session, probably a video call with Simon, finalizing their plans. I watched the timestamp count up. 15 minutes, 20, 30. Whatever they were discussing, it was detailed and thorough. I opened my laptop and began drafting a timeline for the Vegas trip. Flight departure at 8:15 a.m., arrival at 10:30 local time. Simon's flight from London landed at 9:45, giving him just enough time to clear customs and meet Elise at baggage claim. They'd planned it perfectly, or so they thought. I pulled up the Bellagio's website and confirmed their dinner reservations, show tickets, and spa appointments. 2 years of digital romance culminating in 4 days of physical indulgence, all documented in messages they thought were private. My phone buzzed with a text from Miles. Still thinking about that hypothetical situation. If you need backup, call me. I typed back, thanks, might take you up on that. The meditation session ended at 11:47 p.m. Elise came downstairs a few minutes later, claiming she needed water, but really checking to see if I was still awake. Finding me reading in the living room, she kissed my forehead and wished me good night. Sweet dreams, she said. You too. Dream about Vegas. She paused at the bottom of the stairs. What? Your retreat. Dream about all the new things you'll learn. Oh, right. Yes, I'm sure it will be educational. I watched her climb the stairs, noting the slight tremor in her voice. She was nervous about the trip, probably worried about managing the logistics of meeting Simon while maintaining her cover story. She had no idea that her biggest concern should be the man sitting 3 rows behind her on the plane, with a phone full of evidence and a front row seat to her downfall. I stayed up until 2 a.m., adding final details to the archive and preparing for the most important business trip of my career. Not to close a deal or secure funding, but to document the end of my marriage with the same thoroughness I'd brought to every other major project. By the time I went to bed, I had 147 pieces of evidence organized across 47 categories, all pointing to the same inevitable conclusion. In 5 days, Elise would board a plane to Las Vegas, believing she was finally going to consummate a 2-year digital affair. Instead, she was going to star in the most comprehensive documentation of infidelity I'd ever assembled. The meditation app was quiet. Even liars needed sleep. United Flight 447 pushed back from the gate at exactly 8:15 a.m. I was in seat 14C, laptop bag stowed, phone charged, and video recording app ready. 3 rows ahead and 1 seat to the right, Elise was settling into 14F, completely unaware that her husband was close enough to hear her nervous laughter. She'd left the house at 5:30 a.m., claiming the early departure was necessary to avoid traffic. In reality, I knew from the archive that she wanted time to center herself before meeting Simon. Her last message to him, sent from our kitchen while I pretended to sleep, had been simple. Boarding soon. 2 years of waiting ends today. The flight attendant began the safety demonstration. Elise pulled out her phone, typing rapidly. I opened my own phone and watched the meditation app ping with a new session. Even 30,000 feet above ground, she couldn't resist one more conversation with her lover. I'd spent the previous evening memorizing Simon's details from their messages. 34 years old, 6 feet tall, dark hair with premature gray at the temples that he claimed made him look distinguished. British passport, crypto consulting business that seemed to involve more traveling than actual work, and a weakness for philosophical discussions about authenticity and living one's truth. According to their correspondence, he'd never been married but had a history of relationships with complicated women. Elise wasn't his first affair, just his most elaborate one. 2 years of digital courtship building to this moment when they'd finally meet in person. The irony was perfect. After 2 years of screens and cameras, their first physical meeting would also be their most thoroughly documented. My phone buzzed with a text from Tammy. Safe travels. Remember what we discussed about keeping things professional. I typed back, always professional. She responded immediately. That's what worries me. The flight was smooth, giving me 5 hours to review my strategy. I'd identified 3 key moments: arrival at baggage claim, their first physical contact, and their reaction when I introduced myself. Each moment needed to be captured clearly, with audio and video that would be undeniable in court. Elise spent most of the flight staring out the window, occasionally typing messages on her phone. From my angle, I could see her reflection in the window, nervous excitement mixed with guilt. She kept touching her wedding ring, twisting it around her finger in a gesture I'd seen countless times over 15 years of marriage. 2 hours into the flight, she got up to use the restroom. As she passed my row, she glanced down at me, and for a moment our eyes met. I was reading a financial magazine, just another business traveler, completely unremarkable. She looked right through me, her mind already in Vegas with Simon. The captain announced our descent into McCarran at 10:15 a.m. local time. Elise immediately pulled out her phone, typing what I assumed was an update to Simon about their arrival time. The meditation app pinged on my phone, a short session, probably just confirming logistics. I checked Simon's flight status on my laptop. British Airways 275 from London had landed 20 minutes early. He was already through customs, probably waiting at baggage claim with flowers or some other romantic gesture he'd mentioned in their messages. As we taxied to the gate, I positioned my phone for optimal recording angle and opened the video app. The next 30 minutes would determine whether I had enough evidence for a clean divorce or whether I'd need to dig deeper into their relationship. The passengers began deplaning. Elise was in the first group, moving quickly toward baggage claim with the focused energy of someone about to fulfill a long-held fantasy. I followed at a distance, keeping her in sight while maintaining the appearance of just another passenger collecting luggage. McCarran's baggage claim area was crowded with tourists and business travelers, the perfect environment for what I had planned. I positioned myself near Carousel 3, where United Flight 447's luggage would arrive, and began recording. Elise stood near the carousel, scanning the crowd. She'd changed clothes in the airplane bathroom, I realized. The conservative blouse and slacks she'd worn to the airport had been replaced by a flowing dress that highlighted her figure. Even her hair was different, loose and styled instead of the practical ponytail she'd worn during boarding. Then I saw him. Simon Croft matched his photos exactly, down to the expensive casual clothes and confident posture. He was carrying a single red rose and wearing the kind of smile that suggested he'd been looking forward to this moment for months. They spotted each other simultaneously. Elise's face lit up with genuine joy, more happiness than I'd seen from her in years. Simon began walking toward her, rose extended, his British accent carrying across the baggage claim area as he called her name. "Elise! Finally, darling, you're even more beautiful in person." She practically ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck in an embrace that left no doubt about their relationship. He spun her around, both of them laughing, completely absorbed in their reunion. I kept recording, moving closer to capture audio while staying hidden in the crowd. This was it, the moment that would end my marriage and validate 2 years of lies. They were kissing now, not the polite peck of friends meeting for the first time, but the passionate embrace of lovers reunited. Elise's hands were in his hair, his arms wrapped around her waist, both of them oblivious to the crowd around them. 2 years, she whispered against his lips. "I can't believe you're real." "Very real," he replied. "And very much yours for the next 4 days." They broke apart, holding hands and staring at each other with the intensity of teenagers in love. Simon handed her the rose, which she accepted with a smile that made my chest tighten, despite everything I knew about her betrayal. The hotel?" she asked. "Already checked in. Presidential suite, just like we discussed." "Perfect. I told Graham I'd be in meditation sessions most of the time, so we won't be interrupted." That's when I stepped forward, phone still recording, and cleared my throat. "Excuse me, Elise?" She turned toward me, and I watched her face cycle through confusion, recognition, and absolute terror in the space of 3 seconds. Simon, still holding her hand, looked between us with growing awareness that something was very wrong. "Graham?" Her voice was barely a whisper. How are you?" "Same flight," I said calmly, still recording. "Seat 14C, you were in 14F. Funny coincidence, don't you think?" Simon dropped her hand like it was on fire. "You're the husband?" "I am indeed, and you must be Simon, the meditation instructor." Elise was shaking now, her face pale except for 2 bright spots of color on her cheeks. "Graham, this isn't... I can explain." "Can you? Because I'd love to hear how you explain 2 years of messages, photos, and detailed plans for this exact meeting." I held up my phone, showing the video I'd just recorded. "Or maybe you'd prefer to explain it to your followers when this goes viral?" "You can't," she whispered. "You wouldn't." "Actually, I think I would. See, I've been documenting everything for weeks now. Every lie you told me, every message you sent him, every detail of your little Vegas rendezvous." I looked at Simon, who was backing away slowly. "Including your visa status, which my brother, the security consultant, found very interesting." Simon's confident demeanor cracked. "Now see here, mate, I don't know what you think. I think you're about to have a very unpleasant conversation with airport security and immigration, and probably the press, once this video gets out." I was bluffing about most of it, but they didn't know that. 2 years of digital romance had left them unprepared for physical confrontation, especially the kind that involved legal consequences and public humiliation. "Graham, please," Elise said, reaching for my arm. "Can we talk about this privately?" We had 15 years to talk privately. You chose to have private conversations with Simon instead. I pocketed my phone and picked up my carry-on bag. "Enjoy your meditation retreat. I hear Vegas is very enlightening." I walked away, leaving them standing by the baggage carousel in stunned silence. Behind me, I could hear Elise crying and Simon's British accent becoming more pronounced as he tried to process what had just happened. My phone was already uploading the video to cloud storage, creating multiple backups of the most important evidence I'd ever collected. By the time I reached the taxi stand, the file was secured across 3 different servers, ready for whatever came next. The taxi driver asked where I was headed. "The Bellagio," I said. "I have some business to finish." As we pulled away from the airport, I saw Elise and Simon through the rear window, still standing by the baggage claim, their romantic reunion transformed into a crisis management session. She was gesturing frantically, probably trying to explain how her husband had appeared out of nowhere with evidence of their affair. But there was no explanation that would satisfy Simon, and no amount of damage control that would undo what I'd recorded. Their 2-year digital romance had lasted exactly 4 minutes in the physical world. I pulled out my phone and began uploading the video to social media, adding a simple caption: "When your wife's meditation retreat turns out to be something else entirely. 2 years of lies, caught in 4 minutes. Vegas reality. Marriage over." The video was live before we reached the Strip. By the time I checked into my hotel room, not the Bellagio, but a smaller place across the street with a perfect view of their presidential suite, it had been viewed 12,000 times. My phone started ringing immediately. Tammy, Miles, several business associates who'd seen the video. I ignored them all and ordered room service, settling in to watch the view and monitor my social media notifications. 18 million views by midnight. The video had gone viral beyond my wildest expectations, shared and reshared across every platform. Comments ranged from supportive to critical, but the story was clear enough that context didn't matter. Wife lies about meditation retreat, meets online lover in Vegas, gets caught by husband with camera. Elise's yoga studio Instagram account was flooded with comments and questions. Her personal accounts had been set to private, but screenshots of her posts were already circulating compared against the timeline of her relationship with Simon. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. This has gone too far." "E?" I typed back. "Nothing to discuss. Enjoy your retreat." "Graham, please. Simon left. The whole trip is ruined. Can we at least—" "No." I turned off my phone and opened a bottle of wine from the minibar. Across the street, the Bellagio's presidential suite was dark. Either they'd never made it to the hotel, or they were hiding inside, trying to figure out how to salvage a situation that was already completely beyond repair. The meditation app on my iPad was silent for the first time in weeks. Apparently, enlightenment was harder to achieve when the whole world was watching. I raised my glass to the window, toasting the end of my marriage and the beginning of whatever came next. After 2 years of lies and 15 years of gradual emotional distance, it felt surprisingly good to finally know exactly where I stood. The video hit 25 million views by morning, and my divorce attorney's phone was ringing before I finished breakfast. Account closed, as promised. No refunds available. The flight back to Boston was mercifully empty in first class. I'd upgraded using miles, figuring I deserved some comfort after the most surreal 48 hours of my life. Elise had taken an earlier flight. According to the airline app we'd shared for years, she'd left Vegas at 6 a.m., probably desperate to get home and begin damage control. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since the video went viral. 43 million views now, shared across every social platform, picked up by gossip blogs and even a few legitimate news outlets. Vegas Meditation Retreat Exposed was trending on Twitter, complete with memes and commentary from relationship experts. I'd turned off notifications after the first day, but I couldn't resist checking the metrics periodically. The video had taken on a life of its own, spawning reaction videos, think pieces about digital infidelity, and heated debates about privacy versus accountability in marriage. Tammy had been fielding calls at the office, turning away reporters and curious clients with professional efficiency. Miles had left 6 voicemails, each one more concerned than the last. Even my mother had called from Florida, having seen the video shared in her retirement community Facebook group. But the most interesting communication had come from Peterson, my divorce attorney, who'd sent a simple text, "Call me when you land. We need to move fast." The plane touched down at Logan at 3 p.m. I took my time deplaning, knowing that whatever waited at home would be complicated and probably unpleasant. Elise had a 4-hour head start to prepare her defense, rally her supporters, and craft a narrative that minimized her culpability. She'd always been good at managing her image. Her yoga studio's success depended on projecting authenticity and trustworthiness, qualities that were somewhat undermined by a viral video of her embracing another man in an airport. But if anyone could spin this situation, it was Elise. My phone rang as I waited for my luggage. Peterson's number. "Graham, where are you?" "Just landed. What's the situation?" "Complicated. Your wife's attorney called this morning, threatening to sue for harassment, invasion of privacy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. They're claiming the video was obtained illegally and that posting it was a malicious attack on her business." I laughed, surprising myself with how genuine it sounded. Her business built on authenticity and trust? That's their angle. They're also claiming the meeting was innocent, that you misrepresented the context, and that your wife was the victim of an elaborate setup. A setup I apparently orchestrated for 2 years, including faking hundreds of messages and photos? They're still working on that part of the story. Peterson's voice was dry. The good news is that none of their threats have legal merit. You recorded them in a public place, the evidence speaks for itself, and posting the video falls under protected speech about matters of public concern. Public concern? Your wife is a public figure with a social media following. Her business depends on her reputation for honesty and authentic living. The video directly relates to those public claims. I collected my luggage and headed for the taxi stand. What about the divorce? That's where things get interesting. The prenup's infidelity clause is ironclad, and your evidence is overwhelming. She has no claim to your assets, your business, or even spousal support. But she's not going quietly. Her attorney is threatening a scorched earth approach, claiming you've been psychologically abusive, that the surveillance was stalking, that she was driven to seek comfort elsewhere because of your controlling behavior. The taxi pulled up to my house at 4:30 p.m. Elise's car was in the driveway, but the windows were dark. I paid the driver and stood on the sidewalk for a moment, looking at the home we'd shared for 8 years. Whatever happened next would probably be the last civil conversation we'd ever have. I found her in the living room, sitting on the couch with her laptop open and her phone beside her. She looked exhausted, her usual polished appearance replaced by the hollow-eyed look of someone who hadn't slept in days. "Graham." She stood up as I entered, her voice carefully neutral. "We need to talk." "Do we?" This has gotten completely out of hand. The video, the comments, the reporters calling the studio. You've destroyed everything I've worked for. I set down my luggage and looked around the room. Everything appeared normal. Our wedding photos still on the mantel, her yoga magazines on the coffee table, the comfortable domestic scene we'd maintained even as our marriage crumbled. I destroyed everything? That's an interesting perspective. You know what I mean. Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I should have been honest with you about my feelings. But posting that video, making our private business public... She shook her head. That was cruel, Graham. Deliberately cruel. As opposed to 2 years of lying to my face while conducting an affair. It wasn't an affair. Simon and I never actually what? Met in person until Vegas? Had physical contact? Because the video suggests otherwise. She dropped back into her chair, shoulders sagging. You don't understand. What I had with Simon wasn't about romance or physical desire. It was about connection, about finally feeling seen and understood in ways that you... In ways that I what? In ways that you stopped trying 2 years ago. There it was. The pivot I'd been expecting. The moment when her betrayal became my fault. Classic Elise. Take responsibility for the technical details while shifting blame for the underlying motivation. So this is my fault? It's both our faults. Our marriage has been in trouble for years, Graham. We've been living like roommates, going through the motions, avoiding any real intimacy or connection. Simon offered something you couldn't. What? Validation? Adventure? The thrill of forbidden romance? Understanding. Acceptance. The feeling that someone actually saw me as more than just a wife who managed the household and looked good at business dinners? I walked to the window, looking out at Mrs. Dugan's house. She was probably watching from behind her curtains, eager for any gossip about the couple whose marital drama had become international entertainment. And you couldn't have mentioned any of this during our 15 years of marriage? I tried. Remember the counseling I suggested 3 years ago? The marriage retreat I wanted to attend? The conversations about having children that you kept postponing? I did remember, vaguely. In the context of building my business and managing the daily logistics of adult life, Elise's suggestions for relationship improvement had seemed like optional maintenance, important eventually, but not urgent enough to prioritize. So you decided to find emotional fulfillment with a British crypto consultant instead of addressing our problems directly. I decided to explore a connection that made me feel alive again. I never intended for it to go as far as it did. 2 years, Elise. Hundreds of messages, photos, detailed plans for meeting in person. That's not exploration, that's a relationship. She was crying now, not the dramatic sobs of someone playing for sympathy, but the quiet tears of genuine regret. For a moment, I felt something like the old protective instinct I'd had toward her during our early years together. Then I remembered the meditation app notifications at 3 a.m., the lies about yoga retreats, the elaborate deception that had turned my marriage into a performance I wasn't aware I was giving. What do you want from me, Elise? I want you to take down the video. I want us to handle this privately, like adults. I want a chance to rebuild what we had before everything got so complicated. What we had before was a marriage built on lies. I just didn't know it. That's not true, isn't it? How many other trips were really about meeting Simon? How many yoga retreats were covers for your relationship? How many times did you come home from teaching and kiss me goodnight while thinking about him? She couldn't answer, which was answer enough. My phone buzzed with a text from Miles. Outside when you're ready. Brought backup. I looked out the front window and saw his security van parked across the street. Miles was leaning against the driver's side door, arms crossed, watching the house with the professional alertness that had made him a good cop. Graham? Elise had followed my gaze. What's happening? I'm moving out tonight. Tammy found me a furnished apartment downtown. Miles is here to make sure the transition goes smoothly. You can't just leave. This is our home. This is your home. According to the prenup you insisted on, it's in your name. I'm taking my personal belongings and my office equipment. Everything else stays. And the business? Also mine, according to that same prenup. Funny how legal documents work both ways. She stood up, anger replacing sadness. You planned this, the whole thing. Following me to Vegas, recording the video, going viral. You planned all of it. I planned to document your infidelity for divorce proceedings. I didn't plan for the video to go viral, but I'm not complaining about the results. You've ruined my life. I've revealed your choices. There's a difference. Miles knocked on the front door. I let him in, along with 2 other men I recognized from his security firm. Professional movers, probably, or off-duty cops he'd recruited for the occasion. Everything okay in here? Miles asked, assessing the situation with cop instincts that would never fully retire. Just finishing up, I said. Elise, meet my brother Miles. Miles, meet my soon-to-be ex-wife. Elise looked between us, probably calculating whether tears or anger would be more effective. She chose dignity, which surprised me. I'll be in the bedroom while you pack, she said. Please don't take anything that isn't clearly yours. It took 3 hours to pack 8 years of shared domestic life into boxes and suitcases. My office equipment, my clothes, my books, my personal electronics. Everything that had made the house feel like home to me fit into the back of Miles's van with room to spare. Elise stayed upstairs the entire time, though I could hear her making phone calls, probably to her attorney, her mother, and her few remaining friends who hadn't seen the video yet. As we finished loading the van, Mrs. Dugan appeared at her front door with a plate of cookies and an expression of barely contained curiosity. Graham, dear, I hope everything is all right. I couldn't help but notice the activity. Just some changes, Mrs. Dugan. Nothing to worry about. Of course, and if you need anything during this transition, you know where to find me. She handed me the cookies and squeezed my arm with genuine sympathy. Whatever she'd observed over the past few months, it had been enough to put her firmly in my corner. Take care of yourself, she whispered. Some people don't deserve the loyalty they receive. Miles started the van while I took one last look at the house. Elise was silhouetted in the bedroom window, watching us leave. For 15 years, that window had represented home, security, partnership. Now it just looked like another building where I used to live. My phone buzzed with a notification. The video had hit 60 million views. I got in the van and didn't look back. The apartment Tammy had found was in a converted warehouse downtown, walking distance from my office and several good restaurants. Clean, modern, furnished with the kind of generic comfort that suggested temporary residence rather than permanent home. Miles helped me carry up my boxes, then cracked open 2 beers from the refrigerator Tammy had thoughtfully stocked. "So," he said, settling into the rental couch, "how do you feel?" "Honestly? Relieved, like I've been holding my breath for years and can finally exhale." "No regrets about the video?" I considered the question. 60 million people had watched my marriage end in real time. Elise's business was probably ruined, her reputation destroyed, her relationship with Simon terminated before it really began. The nuclear option had lived up to its name. No regrets. Good, because tomorrow is going to be interesting. How so? Tammy fielded 17 interview requests today. Entertainment Tonight, Good Morning America, 3 different podcasts, and a documentary filmmaker who wants to explore digital infidelity in modern marriage. I laughed, surprising myself again. I'm not doing interviews. Figured you'd say that. But the story isn't going away, Graham. You might want to control the narrative while you still can. My phone rang. Peterson's number again. "Graham, we need to meet first thing tomorrow. Elise's attorney filed for an emergency restraining order, claiming harassment and stalking. It's garbage, but we need to respond quickly. Will it stick? Not a chance. But it shows they're serious about fighting this publicly. You sure you want to go down this road?" I looked around my new apartment. Temporary, anonymous, but genuinely mine for the first time in years. I'm sure. Then we go to war. Fair warning, it's going to get ugly before it gets better. After Peterson hung up, Miles and I sat in comfortable silence, drinking beer and watching the city lights through the industrial windows. Somewhere across town, Elise was probably planning her counterattack, crafting a narrative that would salvage her reputation and minimize her responsibility. But the video spoke for itself. 60 million people had seen her embrace Simon at baggage claim, heard her talk about meditation sessions that were actually romantic rendezvous, watched her face when she realized her husband had been 3 rows behind her on the plane. No amount of spin would change those facts. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the video. Good for you. Some people deserve exactly what they get. A friend. Then another. Team Graham. Your wife got what was coming to her. And another. Fake marriage deserves fake meditation. Hope the divorce goes well. 60 million views had created 60 million opinions about my marriage, most of them supportive. Whatever happened in court, I'd already won the battle for public perception. Miles finished his beer and stood up. "You need anything else tonight?" "Just sleep. It's been a long week." "I bet. Call me if Elise shows up or if her lawyer tries anything stupid." After he left, I unpacked my office equipment and set up a temporary workspace in the apartment's second bedroom. Tomorrow would bring legal battles, media attention, and probably more complications than I could anticipate. But tonight, for the first time in months, I fell asleep without wondering what lies my wife